When he was young, the Dervins say, Hanavar swore an oath before his father and the gods. With one hand on an altar red with blood, he pledged to give no rest to Dervins, and to seek their end so long as he drew breath. You ask what truly drove him on. The answer is a simple one: love. He loved his daughter. He loved his people. He loved his city. Hello and welcome to Liam's Lyceum. I'm your host, Liam, aka Hemvar. Today I'll be doing a spoiler-free review of Howard Andrew Jones's Lord of a Shattered Land. Lord of the Shattered Land is a 2023 novel by Howard Andrew Jones and first in the Chronicles of Hanavar. Some of these stories had been previously published, but most have not, and it's not truly a fix-up novel. But it is episodic and has been described to me like a season of television, and that turned out to be accurate. I think the term mosaic novel might also fit here. But book 2 comes out in October, and 3 should follow shortly, and I do believe it's supposed to be 5 books at least. Maybe there's a chance for more as well. Now, in this book, there are 14 of these episodes, which are, of course, called chapters, and, they read like chapters. The book itself is treated like a, historiography. Book 1 opening as freely adapted from the Hanovid of Antiris Sosilos, the leader, with the commentary of Silenus, Andronikos Sosilos. And so you kind of get this idea, right, that for me, it reminded me of the Aeneid, for example, to start, and the world itself is very classically inspired. It's not set in our world, but there are some rough equivalents. Hanavar, for example, is Hannibal of Carthage, and then the Dervins are the Romans, right? And Hanavar swears, you could almost say vengeance, on Volanus, which is like Carthage in real life is razed. Now, of course, Hannibal didn't see Carthage razed, but it's kind of an idea like, what if he had, and what if he had survived? And then what if he, did what he should have done, right? From there, he's not like, I've seen also the comparison that John Olfert made to after Order 66, the Jedi actually had spines and, tried to protect the Jedi. But, anyways. So along with the first encounter with a monster not ending in blood spilt and death, this is a nice change of pace from much sword and sorcery. Sorcery is similarly not inherently evil. It's a bit more nuanced, but there definitely is a power corrupts sort of thing going on. And I would say most of this sorcery is evil. Like, it definitely fits this sword and sorcery vibe, but there is some magic that is rather tame, you could say. But most of these people that have this magical power or have a good amount of magical power are driven by whims and their urges. And we get some rather Lovecraftian elements here, and many cults, so to speak. Lots of blood. Anyways, the story actually starts with middle-aged Hanavar, a prisoner on a small island of Narada. The old general speaks to the petty king of Narada and attempts to make the meeting not just a prelude to go into the Dervins in chains. He sees a chance with an encounter with a great serpent as something that can, see him live another day. Or live another day and not in chains, at least. So Lalassa is a sea priestess in this one, in this first story. She's mid-20s, reminds Hanavar some of his daughter, Nerissa. And she's actually really only a character you see in this first story. And there's a lot of characters like this you'll see in some stories. Maybe they'll appear later in other stories. Again, it's this episodic thing, which is what I've wanted from fantasy for a long time. I do like TV shows that do stuff like this. So Antiris, though, is a character decently common throughout the tales. Yeah, he's important to the writing of the Chronicles. He himself is an actor, playwright, translator. He wants to make plays out of Hanavar's life, particularly Hanavar's life after the razing of his city. There are some serpents here that are kind of like dragons, more of like Northern Legend dragons, I would say. And there are parts that are also rather gruesome at times, really well contrasted with kindness, or you could say altruism. But overall, Hanavar is really compassionate, but he's very deadly as well. This is not much of an actual revenge story. It's just kind of a twist on the revenge story idea, which shows how versatile and how much vitality Sword and Sorcery still has. But anyways, there's a great map at the start of the book. There are occasional footnotes from the intraday ejected narrator, who is kind of editing this Hanavid. Each chapter has its own sections, numbered in Roman numerals, that kind of give you chapters for each chapter, so to speak, the sub-chapters, I guess you call them. Each ends with a note from the narrator, I think except for one, actually, and it's almost like a next time on Dragon Ball Z type of thing. It gives a hint, gives some ideas from that narrator as well, since it's kind of told in like a third person outside point of view. There again is the occasional footnote, which is an interesting way of bypassing exposition in the story. But besides that, there is gladiatorial combat, there's places remote and well populated, there's ideas of a promised land, there's vengeful spirits, there's something akin to the Wild Hunt, there's much blood, and lots of creepy things. It's a really thrilling read. It's heartfelt, exciting, even some comic events or conversations from time to time. One story in particular comes off as rather funny to me. You think you know what is going on, but are consistently surprised because something happens that you're just like, wow, okay. Jones is, and that's honestly also very awesome sometimes when that happens. Jones is inspired by the best of sword and sorcery, like Howard and Zelazny, but also, adventure stories that in like Sword and Sandal, like Harold Lamb. In fact, this book is dedicated to Lamb along with Hannibal. In less than 50 pages, I had almost cried, I had the chills, and I felt a small sense of triumph that would only build throughout the book. This stands, I believe, with Sometime Lofty Towers as one of the best contemporary sword and sorcery novels, and if you haven't read that one, you should read that as well, but first off, you might as well get this one too. The cosmic horror elements with blood and fungus are done really well. It's very eerie and a little disturbing even at times, that much of epic fantasy sadly doesn't have. And honestly, there's great uses of irony here, great use of, well, this like middle-aged and cool character, and cool, I mean like level-headed cool, not like he's awesome cool, but he's also that too. The similarities to the real world are also cool, right? But they're messed with much. So for example, the Dervans have an emperor when Rome was a republic, when Hannibal was around, right? So the characterization of Hannibal is excellent. I've rarely seen better showing and telling, right? So it's just like perfect when it should be done. It's fine and right where it should be, kind of. There's no excessive exposition for world building, rather we get ideas of it from random tidbits in the actions we witness and conversations we hear and whatnot. There's so many things that I expect to happen one way from the reading fantasy, from all the fantasy I have read, and then Jones moves it another way, or something abrupt and awesome happens, and this happens a few times, and it's very satisfying every time it does. But anyways, simply put, this is a great example of sword and sorcery, and how it isn't just for stuffy old bookshelves with the yellowed pages and creased spines, but has a current vitality fresh off the most exciting of fantasy presses. There are some good thews jokes thrown in there as well, if you've read to end to find, that gem in particular. Jones put that in, of course, for sword and sorcery fans. But I just want to close with this quote. It had not occurred to me that Hanavar the monster might fight other monsters. Anyways, this has been Liam from Liam's Lyceum. I will catch you next time.